What's up, my fellow Bhaal cultists? It is I, the one true ruler of Baldur's Gate, Faerun, and the worlds beyond. The Speaker of Bhaal, the Spawn who succeeded, the betrayed to betrayer, Parthenax. With the Netherbrain under my control, Bhaal at the helm, and the slaughter begun, we can finally put the game of the Sword Coast down in the sickshockascore album. If you can't tell by the intro, I streamed a Dark Urge playthrough on my channel. However, I have played multiple runs of this game, playing good, neutral, and now evil playthroughs. There may be times I reference things from other styles of play, other than the one I streamed and completed on my channel, but it is because I feel a good assessment of this game as a whole requires a look at the game in its entirety, not just the one playthrough I've done live. Now, there is a lot to talk about when it comes down to Baldur's Gate 3, so I think it would be easiest to go through the main cast of characters, Dirge included, our main cast of villains, the various major players you encounter along the way, and then each act and what they bring to the game. With all this being said, I feel it only fair to warn you all here and now there will be many spoilers discussed in this review, and I urge you to come back to this later after your own playthrough if you haven't played already and care to stay spoiler free. If you are still here, welcome aboard! Let's get started with this breakdown without any further hesitation. One thing I really like about Baldur's Gate 3 is that each base class in Dungeons & Dragons is covered by someone who you can make an ally at some point in the game. To be honest and fair, there are some stretches in this, but you know, I like to think all 12 are covered. Early on, you get the main cast of companions in Act 1. There are the two obvious ones who you meet early in the Nautiloid, who are also unwilling captives on board with you. There is Lae'zel, who you meet after escaping your containment pod, who immediately threatens you until she knows you are not yet fully overtaken by the tadpole that afflicts you both. Lae'zel is a Githyanki who presumably was captured while assisting in the assault against their sworn enemies, the Ghaik, or Mind Flayers for those who only speak Common. The Githyanki have sworn to see the annihilation of the Mind Flayers, given that they previously had enslaved the Githyanki people. This explains her immediate aggression towards us, as she immediately recognizes us as a thrall. It isn't until the connection is shared through the tadpoles that she then sees through the anger and seeks the opportunity to break out of this burning ship together, quite literally, as the Nautiloid was teleported into the Hells and the inhabitants are not taking too kindly to it. We quickly then find our next companion locked in her own containment tube. Lae'zel does push to leave this poor soul behind so that we have our sole focus on getting to the ship's helm and getting back to the material plane. Whether you choose to help or leave her behind, the cleric behind the glass survives and can be recruited into the team. This Lady of Darkness is none other than Shadowheart. We eventually learn that Shadowheart is a cleric of Shar, which, if you don't know, is not very common or generally accepted, as she is the goddess of darkness, loss, night, and forgetfulness. In fact, Shadowheart goes by this name, as she truly does not remember her birth name, as many Shar followers are expected to willingly give up their memories to show their loyalty. Shadowheart was picked up by the Nautiloid during her mission to obtain the prism she holds close to her chest and shares very little about. In fact, this is because the details of her mission were also taken from her beyond knowing she must take the prism back to her cluster in Baldur's Gate. The next group of characters are found after this tutorial level on the Nautiloid. Most come from Act 1, but a good chunk of them from later acts down the road. The next two can be found shortly after recovering from our crash on the Nautiloid. The more obvious of the two to come across would be Astarion. Astarion can be found outside the ship asking for help from any passerby. He tricks and takes us to the ground for an interrogation, only to find out that he too has been afflicted by a tadpole. And, with nothing being done, everyone with one in their head will eventually mutate into a Mind Flayer. This makes Astarion fall into a laughing fit, even making the statement, "Of course it will turn me into a monster. What else did I expect?" This is our first clue to his true nature, along with the red eyes and the two puncture wounds on his neck. Put it all together and you can deduce Astarion is a vampire spawn that was picked up in the attack on Baldur's Gate. Astarion also looks to use the tadpoles and manipulate them to his favor, as he can now walk in the sun, is no longer under the control of his master, and has more power than he ever did as a mere spawn. Astarion can join the crew in hopes to take these powers and people back to Baldur's Gate to take on his former master, Cazador, and perhaps even replace him. Then there is our wise wizard, Gale of Waterdeep. Gale is also found outside the wreckage of the Nautiloid, as there is a magic portal on the fritz. His hand pops out, and he asks for somebody to help him out. Now trust me on this, but hit the hand. That is one of my favorite bits of this game. We later learn from Gale that he is our Icarus and flew way too close to the sun. Gale learned his power from the goddess of magic herself, Mystra. The two fall in love, and Gale looks to prove himself and give her a gift not even she has dared to get. Gale desired to return the magic that was once stolen from Mystra and return it to her, but this ultimately backfires, and the Netherese magic is accidentally absorbed by Gale instead. Not only is Gale then banished by Mystra, but he is marked by the Netherese orb physically and must absorb magical items as the orb looks to consume the magic of the material plane. Gale looks to join the group to not only contain this new parasite along with the actual parasite, but also to get back to Mystra's good graces. The next two companions are actually at odds with each other, as one has been tasked to hunt the other due to their infernal connections. Nonetheless, the first two are likely to meet would be Will Ravengard, or more commonly known as the Blade of Frontiers. Will is found prepping the people of the Grove for war, as the Druids are looking to conduct the Rite of Thorns and close the Grove off to outsiders. But on the outside of the Grove is a horde of goblins, ogres, and other members of the Cult of the Absolute. Will is impressed with the assist at the gate and seeks an alliance to not only find a cure for their tadpole problem, but to hunt down his next kill to save the people of the Sword Coast from a devil. What Will shares later on is that he is made to conduct this hunt by his patron, as Will is a warlock and she owns his soul. The pact has caused Will's father to cast him out of Baldur's Gate, and Will seeks nothing more than to regain his father's faith in him as a hero, not as someone seduced by a devil. Speaking of devils, Karlach is the tiefling that Will is hunting, and she can be found covered in blood and flames down the hill from a group of self-proclaimed paladins of Tyr. Karlach asks for the group help to take down the paladins, as they are actually a squad of Zariel's soldiers trying to capture Karlach and bring her back to hell. Karlach quickly shares that yes, she was a soldier of the Blood War in Hell, but she used the Nautiloid as her chance to escape, as she was betrayed by someone she was protecting in Baldur's Gate and sold to Zariel. Karlach truly wants nothing more to do with the Hells, Zariel, or any of the Blood War. All Karlach wants to do is live her life, but her heart was replaced by an infernal engine, which makes that difficult. Karlach works with the group to find a solution to her heart problem so she can remain in the material plane rather than return to the hells she left behind. The last potential companion you can meet in Act 1 would actually be one of the bad guys in this part. Minthara is one of the three leaders of the Goblin Army and one of the heads of the Cult of the Absolute. She cannot join the party until Act 2, but if you incapacitate her and leave her alive, she will be shunned by her cult and tortured in their prison in Act 2. If you save Minthara from this torture, she will raise arms with you, as the protector of your group will extend his protection to her to give control of her mind back to her and not the Absolute, which, spoiler alert, is an Elder Brain. Minthara is later learned to have been betrayed by one of the Absolute's chosen, Orin the Red. With her mind now her own, Minthara swears she will stop at nothing to kill Orin and take her revenge, which fits nicely as she is a paladin with the Oath of Vengeance subclass. Focusing on Act 2, there are two other companions that can be gained at this point. One of them joins your camp at the end of Act 1, and it is because you not only save him personally from the Goblin camp, but his grove as well, as they were close to waging war with the Tieflings. Halsin is a druid and was looking into the recent uptick in Mind Flayer inflictions, which led him to the Goblin camp. Halsin does learn of the Cult of the Absolute, and that their main base is at Moonrise Towers. Halsin not only wishes to join the camp to get to the bottom of the Mind Flayer infestation, but also to return to the Shadowlands in hopes that he can make up for his past failings and return the land to the way it should be. The other hero you can recruit in Act 2 is actually one we've seen before. She's none other than the blast from the past, Jaheira. Jaheira was a hero in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, who returns in this game and can be found fighting the good fight against another of the Chosen of the Absolute, General Ketheric Thorm. Jaheira claims that she was the one to have supposedly killed Ketheric and is unaware of how he could have returned from the dead, but will do what she must to keep the Harpers and those in her protection safe. After Jaheira finds out the plot to overtake Baldur's Gate, she offers her services to the group and returns home to fight for those she loves and the place she calls home. Speaking of Baldur's Gate, the final full-time companion you can recruit is in the city itself. Jaheira is not the only returning cast member, but her lovable partner in crime, Minsc, can be found here as well. Minsc is definitely the brawn to Jaheira's brain as a ranger, and is being manipulated by the Cult of the Absolute. They utilize shapeshifters and have one take Jaheira's form to make Minsc fall in line. Once you show Minsc the error of his ways, he swears to bring justice to the cult and follow Jaheira and the others into battle. Now, I did say that all classes are represented in our companions, but you may also notice that I have not mentioned a sorcerer, monk, or bard. Fret not, as I believe I have the answers to who these are supposed to be, but they are not one of the regular companions and require very specific choices to get them. For sorcerer, I believe this to be two different characters. Either this is supposed to be Mizora, Will's patron, or this could be the Dark Urge character, which I find more likely. If Mizora aligns with your team, she can be used in the final push and battles, and is, of course, a sorceress. However, I do believe Dark Urge is the in-game choice for our sorcerer, as if you select the Dark Urge origin character, it preloads as such. Larian Studios did not want to shoehorn anyone into any race, class, or really any choices, so they made any of their characters, origins or not, customizable. But I believe canonically that Dark Urge is supposed to be our sorcerer plug-in. Then there is Monk, and much like the sorcerer, to get this monk you have to make very particular choices. The Prince of the Comet, Prince Orpheus, is a Githyanki imprisoned by our protector in order to sever the connection between us and the Elder Brain. Should you choose to betray your guardian, Prince Orpheus can become a companion for the final battles and happens to be the monk class. Finally, there is our missing bard. I believe this to be the most obvious, this being Alfira. For her, you must play as Dark Urge for her to even approach you about joining your merry band. But she is quite easily seen as a bard character, and she is found writing a song in the Druid's Grove when you find her. It all kind of just makes sense. If you complete all portions of her song as well, she helps you become proficient in lutes at the very least. Now, she does not join the party very long, as the night you recruit her is the night the Dark Urge takes over, and you spill her guts in the campgrounds at the dead of night. I would personally kill to have Alfira be a permanent party member in any playthrough, not just Dark Urge, but it seems for now, I just get to kill her. Now, are these all perfect fits? No, not at all. But without any others that fit nicely into these slots, I think this is all we have to go on. That, or I'm overthinking it, and they just did not want to add 2 more characters to make it a solid 10 instead of 12, but who really knows. So, now we know our good guys. But what about the Absolutes Chosen that I keep talking about? Well, I've mentioned 2, but there was one that has not come up yet. The big 3 villains of this game are General Ketheric Thorm, Orin the Red, and Lord Enver Gortash. We learn towards the end of the game that the Absolute is just a farce, and that these three truly worship the Dead Three. For those who don't know, those three were evil mortals turned gods by the old god of the dead, Jurgle. Merkel, who Ketheric worships, was given the title Lord of Bones and ruled over the dead. Bhaal, who Orin worships and is related to, was given the title of the Lord of Murder, wanting to one-up Merkel and claim the souls while they were still alive. Lastly, Bane, who Gortash worships, was given the title Lord of Darkness, who created hate and tyrants on the world above to lead others to death once again, one-upping even Bhaal as he rules over the living during their lifetimes. The three chosen formulate a plan to use an enslaved elder brain and a stolen crown from the Hells to control the brain to do their bidding. Then, with the tadpoles inserted into their followers, they have an army of mindless mortals to carry out their work. Ketheric's goal is really only to keep his daughter alive, as he made a deal with Merkel to become his avatar in exchange for her life. Ketheric felt abandoned by Saloon, as in his first life he served her faithfully, but suffered both his wife then daughter's death. With Isabel back from the dead, Ketheric will now stop at nothing to get her back from the Harpers and lay a path for the Dead Three's goals to keep his small family together. Ketheric is rumored to be unkillable, not only because he has come back from the dead, but because others have tried to kill him since no wound would stick. It is discovered that Ketheric has imprisoned Isabel's girlfriend, Dame Aelin, daughter of Saloon and Asmir, to steal her immortality and make it his own. Once the group makes their way through a Sharan temple and releases Aelin, they take the fight to Ketheric and he is finally killed. Ketheric's role in this master plan was to take the brain and the amassed army to Baldur's Gate to stage a takeover. Gortash insists that the plan must continue, but Orin sees this as an opportunity to try and make a move against Gortash, as all she really cares for is murder. Orin truly is the odd one out, as she was not even the original Chosen. The Dark Urge was the Chosen of Bhaal, which enraged Orin to the point she tortured the Dark Urge, stole their memories, and infected them with a tadpole as well. Orin truly has no ambitions other than trying to win the approval of Bhaal. No one and nothing else matters to her other than mass murder and eradicating literally everyone. Gortash was the brains of this operation, trying to get all three chosen together to run the world the way their gods had wanted it. Gortash was behind the theft in the Hells and was the glue that kept Ketheric and Dark Urge together. I think this makes sense given he is serving the god of tyrants, but I still feel it's worth pointing out. Now, another one of Gortash's crimes was against none other than our companion Karlach, as he was the one who betrayed her and sold her to Zariel in the first place, giving us a personal vendetta to stop him in this plan, if there wasn't enough already. At the end, it is revealed that the Dead Three were not really in charge of the brain, but the brain was buying time to absorb the Netherese crown's power that was placed on top of it to regain control and begin the Grand Design, which is essentially a reboot of the Illithid race. The Illithids have fought the Githyanki for so long, and their numbers have dwindled. So the brain's plan is to go with what the Chosen say until it has enough power to turn all the infected at once into new Mind Flayers, and take more people until the Grand Design is complete. Us having killed Ketheric and stolen his stone severed the unity the Chosen Three had and caused even further infighting, weakening their hold further until the final fight with the now Netherbrain. Our main conflict is stopping, or joining, the Dead Three and taking control or destroying the brain before any wicked acts can be done. But there are plenty of other players on the board who are trying to persuade, manipulate, or gain their own power along the way. The first that comes to mind and comes to the main party on their own is none other than Raphael. Raphael is a devil and son to Mephistopheles, one of the archdevils of the Hells. Raphael appears to us simply stating that he wants to help us rid ourselves of the tadpole taking a free ride in our heads. But truly, What devil tells you the fine print, especially in the first meeting? The crown being used to control the Elder Brain was actually Raphael's father. The crown was stolen in one of Mephistopheles' vaults, and Raphael sees this as an opportunity to gain his own power in the Hells. Raphael ultimately looks to make a deal for the crown in exchange for him getting rid of our tadpoles. Imagine that, a devil trying to make a deal. This is one ending with him you can choose, or you can choose to ignore him, or even defy him and enter his House of Hope in the Hells to steal something from him. I prefer to take the fight to Raphael, as giving a devil something that they want just doesn't sound like it would benefit literally anyone but them. And we can't forget about that sweet, sweet XP, and how this would waste it. Let alone the fact that Raphael is the only boss that sings his own boss music. So cool, by the way, and if you cast silence on him during his verse, he actually stops singing. I can't state how much I love this game and its attention to details like this. Since we are on the topic of breaking into the House of Hope and stealing from Raphael, let's talk about those who ask you to do so, the Githyanki. Kithric Voss in particular. Voss isn't the only notable Githyanki either, as their queen Vlaakith also demands our help with her own vision for the worlds and her own ambitions. Let's start with Voss, though, as we meet him pretty early on riding a red dragon in search of an artifact that we as the player holds with us, or Shadowheart really. Voss eventually sheds his mask and shows us that he is a double agent, really looking for the artifact to release the previous ruler from enslavement so he may usurp Vlaakith. Voss is the one who has been leading the assault against our guardian within the artifact that Shadowheart carries, as it holds the Prince of Comets, Orpheus. Voss feels that freeing Orpheus is the only way to free his people, as he sees Vlaakith for what she truly is, which is simply a lich and not some goddess that she tells her people that she is. Once again, you are left with a few choices. Either help Voss out and steal the hammer that Raphael has to break Orpheus's chains and betray your guardian. You can ignore him and beat the game anyway. Or allow the guardian to devour Orpheus's brain, releasing him from the artifact instead. I tend to ally with the guardian, however, as they have always been there on our side the whole time. Freeing Orpheus really only seems to benefit Voss and his followers, and if we lose the guardian, one of the party members must sacrifice their mind and body and become a mind flayer, but more on that later. You can still convince Voss to side with you for the final fight if you pass a skill check and convince him that Orpheus attacked you first, but even this is not guaranteed, and you may have to battle to the death with them before advancing to the final fight. Going back to Vlaakith, she really only has one goal in mind: keep what power she has intact. Her people are starting to wake up and realize she is not all that she makes herself out to be, and beginning to turn their backs on her. She knows about the secret that the artifact holds as well, being Orpheus's containment. Vlaakith is the one directing the Githyanki to find the artifact and bring it to her at once, so that no one can prove she is a liar and stole the throne from the true prince of the Githyanki. Vlaakith demands that the party go into the artifact and kill the inhabitants, freeing her from the threat that looms over her power. If you don't agree, she will likely use the spell Wish and erase you from existence. But thankfully, you can safely defy her from inside the prism itself. I've mentioned our guardian a few times now, and it's time to discuss who they are, what their plans are, and what they ask of the player as well. I know I put a spoiler warning at the beginning of this video, but this is a major spoiler, and it's worth mentioning again. If you have not played through the entirety of the game, you can always come back and watch this later, but do not let me be the one that spoils this for you. Alright, without further ado, we first see the Guardian in the character creation screen, and I absolutely love this as it manipulates us from the start. As we are technically making this character, it's someone who can be trusted, right? Well, the Guardian ultimately does want to help you get rid of your tadpole and assist you, but they are not always as very forthcoming with the whole truth. We learn when we do enter the prism the second time before Act 3 that our Guardian has been a mind flayer all along and presenting as what we created as to not arise suspicion or aggression. We do learn that this is because they are a mind flayer, and in the prism with Orpheus that they can project his powers and protect us from the Elder Brain's influence. We also learn that before they were infected at the Moonrise Towers, that they were an adventurer and sailor. It is also even later confirmed by Ansur, an undead dragon found below the Baldur Gate prison, that the identity of our guardian is none other than Baldurin himself. Baldurin withholds all this information, as he does not see it as relevant to their current situation. He does not dwell on his own past, let alone wish to go back to the way he was before, in addition to him taking on the new identity of the Emperor, which was coined as his title after his first escape when he was helping run Baldur's Gate and the Knights of the Shield from the Baldur's Gate undergrounds. Baldurin was eventually recaptured by Gortash in the Dark Urge and brought back to the Elder Brain to serve again. Baldurin and the rest of the Cult of the Absolute were all tasked with finding the prism, as this was the one item that could assist in stopping their grand plan. Well, who other than Baldurin comes across it? Once he takes possession of it on the Nautiloid, he is instantly free of the Elder Brain's control again, and frees the closest thralls near him, being us, to assist him with the fight against the group of evildoers. All in all, Baldurin truly does want to take the fight to the cult and the big bad evil guys, but knows he cannot do it alone and needs to gain the trust of people who were likely infected by him in the beginning of the game. Baldurin has his reasons to keep his secrets, but it's up to you as the player to either go along with him or cast him out and take matters into your own tentacles. Of course, that is the former holder of the prism, but we all know who we see with the prism, which is none other than Shadowheart. And wouldn't you know it, she's been tasked by her fellow Shar worshippers to obtain the prism, and they've taken any other memory from her related to why. It is later discovered that Shadowheart was personally tasked by Mother Superior Viconia Devere, a returning party member from the previous two games. We find out that Viconia believes this artifact to be what the Enclave needs to take the fight to their sworn enemies, that being the Selûnite worshippers. It's also revealed that Viconia is aware of the war that is coming and wants to be the ones to wield the prism against the Cult of the Absolute. You really only get two options with Viconia. Either Shadowheart embraces Shar as her goddess, and you can recruit the Enclave for the final fight, or she doesn't, and you have to fight their entire Enclave. If it helps make your decision, you learn Shadowheart's true past in the House of Grief, as you find her parents imprisoned there to help, quote-unquote, motivate her into becoming a Sharan worshipper. You also discover that Shadowheart and her parents were captured in the woods while Shadowheart, actually Genevieve Hollowleaf, was doing her coming-of-age ceremony as a Selûnite follower. So you can add kidnapping and brainwashing onto Viconia's lists of quote-unquote good deeds. Shadowheart isn't the only one put on this mission by a higher power, as our friend Will happens to be a warlock. Will also has someone he must answer to, and she has her own stakes in our little game. Mizora is the holder of Will's pact, and is a devil, much like others, who hates to lose her playthings. Mizora was tasked with getting her mistress's soldier, Karlak, back into the Blood War, and uses none other than Will to try to chase her down. Her one real motivation is to keep Will on his leash, as the party does get a couple of chances for Will to break his pact. Mizora does get captured by the Mind Flayers, and needs rescuing from the party, which is where you start the talks of breaking their deal. But once they get to Baldur's Gate, Mizora gives the party one last choice. Mizora either tells Will where they are keeping his father and offers to help break him out for Will's soul, or they break the pact and Duke Ravengard dies. It's left to us to guide Will into the quote-unquote right choice, and honestly, I'm not sure which is better. My first playthrough, I had Will save his father to regain his acceptance, but then I thought about it later, and it cost Will's very soul an everlasting servitude for a man who cast him out without even hearing his case. I think personally Will has his life to live, and Duke Ravengard made his choices. It's time they both made peace with that, in my opinion. We've now spoken a lot of devils in the infernal, but what about the gods above? Well, there is one who holds a personal stake in the outcome of this party, and that would be Mystra. Initially, because of Gale's betrayal, she casts him out without a second thought. But when she learns of the cult of the Absolute, she changes her mind and sees Gale and his orb as an opportunity. Mystra then tasks Gale with the impossible mission of using the orb to self-destruct next to the Elder Brain to put an end to the threat over the world. Mystra sees this as her version of forgiveness, and Gale is almost too excited to accept as he asks no questions but takes the mission on hand. This is actually one of the ways to end the game early, as if you do go through with the plan of blowing Gale and the Elder Brain to the heavens, the threat is gone and the credits roll. However, if you disobey this order and learn about the crown that rests on the Elder Brain's head, Mystra will change her mind and offer her forgiveness to Gale in exchange for the crown. Like all the others, you can ignore her entirely, offer her the crown for the forgiveness, or kick her ass to the curb like the manipulative douchebag she is and ascend to godhood yourself. I know the godhood ending is technically the bad ending for Gale, but my god is it satisfying to basically spit in Mystra's hateful face and literally get on her level with the item she asks us to get for her after asking us to die. If you can't tell, there's no love lost between Mystra and I. She messed with the wrong wizard. Let's move on to some monsters, shall we? Though he is no god, nor is he a devil, he is a powerful figure in Baldur's Gate, Cazador. Cazador is the master vampire of Baldur's Gate, and has been there for some time. Cazador tasks Astarion and the other sickshockascore to hunt every night and bring back people for him to use as he pleases. Astarion always assumed it was for a nightly meal, but then he later discovers that in the bowels of the manor, every last one of his victims are caged, awaiting the Black Mass ritual. We learn that Cazador's ultimate goal is to use his 7 spawn and the rest of the 1,000 souls captured to become a vampire ascendant. This would grant Cazador even more vampiric powers than he has now, and with the added bonus of none of the side effects. Much like Astarion with his tadpole, Cazador could walk out in the sun, go places uninvited, cross rivers, see his reflection again, and never feel the urge to drink blood again. Once you stop Cazador, you and Astarion are given the choice. You can either stop the ritual altogether and free the souls from this doom, or you can have Cazador and Astarion swap places, making Cazador a mere ingredient to Astarion's new power. If I do an evil playthrough, obviously I need another top-tier villain on my side. But if I'm playing a run where we are do-gooders, well, that's 1,000 souls saved and no powers gained. Hooray. 1 monster down, 1 to go. The last big player I want to discuss would be our Dark Urge. I played the Dark Urge as a true Bhaalist and gave in to my darkest desires, but that is not the only way to play. The Dark Urge has 2 main paths with opposite motivations. Either you do as Daddy Dearest says and use this newfound power to overtake the Elder Brain and run the cult of the Absolute, bringing nothing but death and destruction across the world, or you reject the monster you were and start a path of redemption, rejecting everything you are and your father's wishes. I won't lie, the run I did giving into the urge, that took some work. You lose a lot of good companions and lose them pretty quickly early on. You don't really get that many allies for the final fight, as you are so solely focused on murder that doesn't leave a lot of people alive. And even the bad guys you do side with end up getting killed by the Elder Brain anyway, making this fight really a fight between you and the Brain. I did enjoy the playthrough, but at the end, I was left with Astarion, really who only liked me. Lae'zel was pissed, as I allowed Orpheus to die. I cheated on Minthara with Mizora. My bad. How does a bad guy not say yes to a devil? Gale you kill right away. Shadowheart left the party after her fight with Lae'zel. And if you do the run right, Karlach and Will do if you destroy the Grove. That is a ton of heavy hitters taken out early on. I'm curious to try a redemption run to see what varies in those choices, if anything. Obviously, Bhaal will reject you and accept Orin as the Bhaalspawn, but I'm curious to see if you can cure the urge, or what happens to the murderous intent if you fight it. Either way, right now it is my personal opinion that accepting and growing the Dark Urge to be the true ending for the Dark Urge themselves. It's sad to see that in a custom playthrough that the Dark Urge is reduced to a corpse in Orin's room, but I do like the reference hidden for those who don't know who that is. Alright, with the stage set and our characters discussed, we can finally talk about the game itself and the story it tells. Starting in Act 1, if you haven't guessed it already, we find ourselves on the Nautiloid, being infected with our friendly little parasite. The Nautiloid is being chased down by the Githyanki, attempting to take back their prism. In the scuffle, the ship is accidentally transported to the Hells and above the Blood War itself. In the confusion, you and your allies overtake the helm and manage to teleport yourself and the ship back to the Sword Coast. Unfortunately, it is not a graceful transport, as you crash land on the coastline. Here, you come across three main factions: a group of tieflings led by Zevlor, a circle of druids temporarily hosting the tieflings, and of course, the Cult of the Absolute. The tieflings are making their way to Baldur's Gate as they have been banished from their previous home due to the fall of Ethereal, as many people had grown a distrust in their people. Though many long for their lost home, there is no returning, and they have high hopes for the city on the horizon. However, the Cult of the Absolute have been seen killing anyone around or kidnapping them to force them into their ways, so the tieflings are given no choice but to hide in the grove that the druids live in. The druids are split on what to do with the tieflings, as many believe what Halsin does. They are in need, and they have the means to protect them in the grove. But Halsin goes missing, and Kaga takes over as the leader in the meantime. Kaga feels she must do what's in her power to protect her home, not these strangers, and begins the Rite of Thorns to encompass the grove and keep others out. Problem being, this would also force the refugees out on their own and into the dangers of the world. It is also possible to discover Kaga's other reason for this sudden change, which is her serving the Shadow Druids. If you call her out on this, a fight will ensue, but you can also soften Kaga's heart and bring her back to the light should you do so. Finally, for this first area, there is the Cult of the Absolute. They have been ordered to find any survivors of the crash, as they know the prism was on board of the ship with Baldurin and want that back in their control. There are three main leaders of this cluster that you are tasked with dispatching or joining. There is a goblin named Priestess Gut, a hobgoblin named Dwar Ragslin, and of course, a drow named Minthara. Honestly, I should have sided with the cult in this evil playthrough. But if you want to play a hero game and still want Minthara on your side, make sure you use non-lethal physical attacks to knock her out. She'll come back later. There are also some side questy things during this portion of Act 1, such as the Paladins of Tyr, who are hunting Karlach as well. Turns out they are from Avernus, and also trying to pull her back to the Hells. There are tiefling children trying to start a thieving guild and trying to get eaten by harpies and snakes. There is a hag who has a pregnant girl in her lair. The whole Shadow Druid quest can be found in the outskirts of her bog as well. Many gnolls munching on corpses and entrapping travelers in caves. An owlbear's cave and a starving cub inside with a feasting mother. A sad dog with a fallen companion of their own. A group of black market dealers looking for an iron flask. Do not open. Duke Ravengard's flaming fists in a flaming building. Fun fact, he's also kidnapped. A dark wizard's hideaway with an evil sealed book. Some smart ogres looking for some easy gold or easy food. And of course, gross spiders in a well. Once you resolve this civil war, one way or another, it will have you push into one of two areas left in Act 1. You can either go to the mountains right away and end up at the Githyanki Creche, or you can go deeper into the Goblin Camp and find the Underdark. I would recommend the Underdark first if you want to see the whole game, as you will not get the choice if you complete the Creche first. Going into the Underdark, you are immediately greeted by minotaurs, monsters, and lots of mushrooms. There are two major factions in the Underdark area. There are the Myconoids, who really only wish to be left alone and let their circle heal, but then there are the Dragar, who only care for themselves and the mining of the Grimforge across the lake. The two groups got into a territory dispute where both walked away with losses. The leader of the Myconoids, Sovereign Spa, asks that you bring peace back to their people and bring them back the head of the cult leader, Nier, to prove their onslaught is done. You can either complete this and get their boon, or you can ignore it with no repercussions. Like I said, they really just want to be left alone. The Dwergar are running a mining operation at the Grimforge, looking for some rare chunks of that adamantium ore. The Dwergar care for little else besides themselves, beating animals and enslaving other races to do the hard work for them. Nier is leading the troop, but got trapped behind the mining operation itself. When you release him, he immediately takes it out on the slaves, and you get another choice. Take them all out and avenge those who were enslaved and perished and continue to be brutalized, or you relish in the cult's goals and ask for help getting to Moonrise Towers of Act 2. Additionally, in the Grimforge lies Grim himself. You can actually forge up to 2 items using 2 adamantium ores you can find deeper inside. Once you activate the forge, however, Grim gets upset that you did not ask his permission before touching his things. The giant construct emerges from the lava flow pipe and attacks the party on sight. You must either make him walk through the molten lava and make him vulnerable, or crush him with the forge's hammer to do any damage to the big guy. Either way, the reward for this fight are arguably worth the frustration. It's also in this area where you learn that a battle between the Hells and the Sharan worshippers took place. But more of that in Act 2. Other things to find in the Underdark would be a wizard's tower filled with more constructs and mushroom spores, another mind flayer intrigued in your knowledge and experience with a nautiloid ship looking to help cure you of your ailment, a startup cult for worshippers of Bhaal. Spoilers, it's just a red cap. And 3 ex-partners that were in search of the forge, all sabotaged by the others in some way, one of which being a specter. Not cool, dude. Overall, if you know anything about the Underdark, or just like stories about an underworld of some kind, you will love exploring the depths below, all while collecting the weapons, armors, allies, and of course, that sweet, sweet XP. The last part of Act 1 to discuss is the Githyanki Creche. Lae'zel has been pressuring the team to come here as she is aware of a way to be rid of the tadpole infestation. However, our lovely guardian keeps warning us to stay away from Githyanki, and that they will only get in the way of our mission. The Githyanki are holed up in an old temple of Lathander, long been abandoned by the original inhabitants. And by abandoned, I mean the Githyanki came in there and slaughtered them. The Githyanki are seen bringing in, questioning, and then eliminating known cultists as they too are looking for their prism. It's here we see just how brutal and uncaring the Githyanki are to anything but themselves. There are children made to battle to the death to enhance their own strength. There is an order to destroy the last remaining egg of theirs as it is not yet hatched, seeing it as weak. There is a doctor who quickly learns that you are infected and wishes to dissect you, and Githyanki young abusing animals for fun. They aren't the most welcoming crowd. Eventually, you get to the very depths of their temple to find the Githyanki responsible for the search in the Grove area. They all quickly discern that you have the prism and demand its return immediately, but as this is your only means of protection against the Elderbrain, it is advised that you keep the prism close at hand. Once the fights are over, this is where you meet the Lich Queen herself, Vlaakith. As stated before, she makes you enter the prism, which is where you meet your true guardian in person. He beckons you into a cavern and offers you a sword to kill him if you truly don't trust that he has your best interests in mind. Here you have another choice. Kill the guardian as Vlaakith commands it, or turn your back on the Lich Queen, and leave without any further bloodshed. All in all, these encounters, areas, situations, and people wrap up the majority of Act 1. The main focus is introducing you to the cast of characters, setting up the overhanging story, and hook you into the fantasy world laid before you. Much like any other game, this is your introductory act, helping you get comfortable with the controls, giving you some practice in levels, and setting your expectations for the rest of the game ahead of you. With our introductions out of the way, we move into the more story-driven section of the game, the Shadow-Cursed Lands. No matter which path you choose in Act 1, your ending will be the same. You must make it to and survive the Cursed Shadowlands. It's here that houses the Moonrise Towers, which you know as the player is where the Mind Flayers and the cult are said to be based out of. We learn a lot about our first big bad evil guy in this area, as this is General Ketheric Thorm's home. Ketheric, a former follower of Saloon, turns to Shar as he loses both his wife and daughter. He denounces Saloon and tells anyone who wishes to worship her further to leave town or suffer his wrath. This sparks a war between Ketheric and his Dark Justiciars, and the local Grove Druids led by Halsin, and the Harpers, led by Jaheira. Jaheira is the one to slay Ketheric, but not before he can unleash the last of his rage and blanket the land in a curse that will consume all life. In death, Ketheric is approached by Myrkul, the god of death, offering to return him to life should he play his part in the Dead Three's plot to overtake the world. Ketheric only requests one thing from Myrkul, which was that Isabel, his daughter, could be brought back to life as well. With the deal made and the resurrections complete, Ketheric is given new purpose, which is serving his newest god and conquering the world in his name. Besides the big bad and his evil tower, you can also go to his old Sharan temple and complete Shar's gauntlet. Whether you do this as requested by Ketheric and his forces to assist his necromancer who is collecting the quote-unquote night song, or because you heard that Ketheric's source of his power is housed there, you must complete this gauntlet to collect your prize. At the very end of the temple, you are transported into Shar's own realm, the Shadowfell. There, you find Isabel's girlfriend, daughter of Saloon, the Night Song, Dame Aelin herself. Shadowheart is tasked by Shar to kill the Night Song. Should you kill or try to free her, Balthazar will attack with his undead minions. Should you help him complete his task, you assist with bringing Ketheric the Night Song, and are then imprisoned as he figures out who you are. Before we talk about the rest of Moonrise, there are other notable places and quests to do within the Shadow-Cursed Lands. You can actually cure the lands of this curse by working with Halsin and finding the spirit of nature of this land and returning the two pieces together. This takes a lot of work and doesn't pay off until the final fight, but it is worth knowing that you and your party helped Halsin fix something he feels guilty for. We also find Raphael here again, making a deal with a tiefling child Mole for her soul. He brushes that off and then tasks you with slaying one of his old enemies stuck in the Sharan temple, singing a tune until every last Sharan is defeated. This was what we were talking about in the Grim Forge between the Dark Justiciars and the Hells. His old enemy was cursed by Raphael to kill them all. Astarion can also speak with Raphael about the scars on his back and learn a little bit more about their purpose. Jaheira also remains in these lands, returning to take the fight back to Ketheric once she learns he has risen from his grave. She is holed up with Isabel in the Last Light Inn with her Harpers, keeping any of the refugees they come into contact with safe. Jaheira quickly discovers that you too are infected, but you quickly gain her trust as she sees you as an opportunity to infiltrate the enemy forces from within. Speaking of the refugees, some of them are also here again because of course they are. As the Tieflings were also making their way to Baldur's Gate, they unfortunately had to cross the Shadow-Cursed Lands as well. We could have at least warned them about the dangers since we knew about them, but oh no, let's just let them waltz into the evil Angry Lands. You meet the first bunch at the Last Light Inn, who then tell you they were betrayed by Zevlor as he abandoned them, and the others were captured by the cult and taken to Moonrise Towers. Roland's siblings were taken, and he, having magical abilities, feels responsible for their capture and sets off on his own to save them. and now it's up to you to save him. Voss also seeks us out in Act 2 and drops his act of working for Blackith to working against her. He reveals that he knows that Orpheus is the true ruler of their people and knows he is living. Voss shares that he knows a way to free Orpheus from his prison and simply requests that we consider helping in freeing Orpheus for the good of their people. Voss then gives us a tracker that starts going off if Githyanki are in the area, waiting to ambush the party before he sets off for Baldur's Gate. There are also a bunch of mini-bosses in this area as well. Plenty of Ketheric relatives can be found across the ruined town. There is Ketheric's uncle, Malice Thorm, who is a surgeon, and another devoted to the teachings of Shar. We find him continuing his work in the House of Healing, operating on a less than willing participant as he takes his eyes out, as that is what Shar wants of them all. You can then fight him and his nurses in the operating room, or convince them to kill each other, as that is Shar's will. There is someone claiming to be Ketheric's son, Thisobald Thorm. He is found still running his tavern, waiting for someone to arrive to drink and share stories with. Well, friend, you are that somebody. As soon as you walk in, he offers you a drink, and you must continually roll Constitution saving throws, as well as a check for storytelling until he is either satisfied or feels you are holding back. You either outdrink this bulking guy, or you have to fight him and his undead waiters to the death. Finally, though, her relation to Ketheric is unknown, but nonetheless, her name is Giringoth Thorm. She is found in her toll collecting building, looking for those who wish to pass to collect her payment. She is adorned head to toe in gold, demanding payment from all that pass through her toll. You can either give her all your gold, push her out a window, killing her instantly, convince her that this isn't the job for her, or fight her and her skull boys to death. Any of these fights can be pretty tough, but for the pure enjoyment, and of course the XP, I would argue the fights are worth the long rests. It's interesting to see just how the curse afflicts the living in the area and the lands themselves. Lastly is Moonrise Tower itself. Here, we are finally introduced to our big bad evil guy, Ketheric Thorm. He can be found in his throne, judging either Minthara, should we only have knocked her out in Act 1, or the returning goblins from the camp. Either or, one of the goblins grows the courage to grab an axe and plant it right in Ketheric's neck. Ketheric, in response, simply stands up, pulls the axe out, lays it at the goblin's feet, and tells them to try again, which they ultimately do. Ketheric once again removes the axe like it's nothing, and dispatches the goblin. Ketheric then orders Minthara to the prisons, and us to deal with the remaining goblins as we see fit. If you do go to the prison, you not only can find and rescue Minthara, but you can find the remaining refugees, as well as the worst character in existence, Wulbren Bongle. But we'll get back to him in Act 3. If you wish to save these prisoners, you must fight the guards. Duh. The fight itself is not too hard, especially if you enlist the help of the deep gnomes, as with their gear, they can blow a hole in the wall to help the lot escape. But they all pick up arms and try to help you fight. I do not need your help. You are dumb, get out, and get to safety. With everyone freed, and your position now known to Ketheric, he makes it to the top of the tower to stage for the final stand against you, the Harpers, and the rest of the fighters from the Last Light Inn. Surprise! This really isn't the last fight though, as when you knock Ketheric down far enough, he decides to instead kidnap Dame Aelin, or enslaved Isabel depending on your choices, flee to the caverns below the towers, and leave us with his undead soldiers left on top of the tower. The choice is obvious. You must chase after this wannabe god, save Dame Aelin or Isabel, and defeat the avatar of Merkel. Before you can get to Ketheric one final time, you must push your way through the Mindflayer Sanctuary. Here you can find both Zevlar and Mizora, captured and free them. If you play Dark Urge, you can also find your own personal pod where Orin tortured you. And finally, find their largest captive yet, the Elder Brain. Before the Elder Brain are the leaders of the Absolute. Gortash, Orin, and Ketheric, all of which encircling Duke Ravengard, infecting him with a tadpole while discussing their plans. Gortash scolds Ketheric for letting the party get this far and disrupt so much right under his nose. Gortash and Orin make their way to Baldur's Gate and expect Ketheric to not only clean up his mess, but be the evil general that comes with the army that seeks to destroy Baldur's Gate. Once you finally get back to Ketheric, he surrenders himself to Merkel, turning into the true Avatar and becoming the Lord of Bones. A giant Grim Reaper emerges from where Ketheric fell, and you must fight and kill this Avatar and its minions to move on to Act 3. With no other enemies in our way, nature can heal should you have healed the spirit correctly, and the party can push forward onto Baldur's Gate. But just before you make it to Baldur's Gate, you take one last long rest right outside the city, dreaming of what inside the gates may look like. And you're ambushed in the middle of the night by Githyanki forces, coming out from inside the prism, attacking the party. Your guardian reaches out to you begging for help as they have been breached and they're inside the barriers in the prism itself, and he is losing this fight. You arrive inside the prism only to find a single mind flayer holding off a bunch of Githyanki monks on his own the best he can. The mind flayer begs you to assist him and reveals that he has been your guardian this whole time. With this new revelation made, you fend off the remaining Githyanki and get more of your guardian's backstory. This is where he reveals he has Prince Orpheus imprisoned in here and lets his guards down for just a moment, allowing his followers in and able to invade the prism. He reveals that he is known as the Emperor and has recently been freed of the Elder Brain's influence thanks to this power. The Emperor also shares it's the same power that he shares with you to protect you from being enslaved, or worse, morphed into a mind flayer. However, the Emperor then offers you a chance to enhance and embrace your illithid powers by progressing down the illithid line a little more. Not fully transforming, keeping most of your appearance the same, but enhancing your illithid powers and abilities to the next tier. It's up to you on whether you choose to accept or not, but the only real true downside is that your eyes turn fully black and you now have noticeable veins across your body. Otherwise, the powers granted can be a little cracked. Pushing on with the mission, we have finally done it. We have finally made it to Act 3, Baldur's Gate itself. As we enter, we are greeting with the earthquaking and a cutscene involving our two final big bad evil guys. Orin and Gortash seem to be at odds, as losing Ketheric's gem to us has caused their power over the Elder Brain to wane. No longer being the Dead Three, Orin doesn't really see much point in sticking with the Alliance and the original plan, looking to return to her mass murderous ways and bathe the streets of Baldur's Gate in blood. Gortash is included. Gortash begins to worry as without full control over the brain, and now Orin, his power weakens and the plan will falter without all allies on board with the plan. Gortash actually reaches out to us as the new Stonebearer, seeking our assistance with removing Orin from the equation and looking to us as the replacement for both. If you play as Dark Urge, Gortash immediately recognizes you as one of the original co-conspirators. Gortash reaches out to the Dark Urge, talking him up and saying that he has always respected him more than Orin, having more vision than just murder. Ironically, Orin also reaches out to you, but in her own way. She kidnaps a member of your team, demanding that you kill Gortash and bring her his stone so that she may present your murder to Bhaal and commence her own plan for the Cult of the Absolute. You can side with either or neither, but both have their own factions to attack you with. Gortash has his Steel Watch, a bunch of constructs that are controlled by brains harvested and controlled by the Elder Brain, and of course, Orin has her fellow worshippers of Bhaal that she commands to attack you and the party. Beyond the final two villains, there is a lot to accomplish in Baldur's Gate. Act 3 is truly the wrap-up arc, as all of the characters have something they need to do in Baldur's Gate to achieve one of their endings. Since we mentioned Duke Ravengard already, let's start with Will. To complete Will's story, we can do one of two things. allow Mizora to keep Will's soul in exchange for her assistance with locating and rescuing the Duke, or we break his pact and can either ignore the underwater prison Gortosh calls the Iron Throne, or attempt to break him out on our own. Any attempt to infiltrate the prison will immediately result in Gortosh turning his back on us and ending any alliance we may have formed. Inside the prison, you can find Duke Ravengard, Omelium, the Mind Flayer that we met in the Underdark, and family members of the Gondian workers that Gortosh has working in his steel foundry. It's up to you to pick and choose who you save, as time is not on your side, as there is an onslaught of invaders in the Iron Throne as well, killing anything and everything in sight. Should you save Duke Ravengard, Will is finally forgiven, though, in my opinion, he never really needed it. And he shares a story of a worm that sleeps under Baldur's Gate that he is known to rise in times of great peril to come to the people's aid. We can touch on this later, after all the character endings. Since we've talked about Sharans a lot thus far, let's talk about our god's favorite princess, Shadowheart. Depending on whether or not you seek to redeem her from Shar or push her farther down the Sharan path, you have some options. Should you seek redemption, saving Aelin and fighting back against Viconia and the rest of the Sharan Enclave is for you. This involves a fight against the entirety of the Sharans in the House of Grief, and let me tell you, this was one of the harder fights for me. I'm not sure if it's because it's one of the earlier fights you can come across or what, but man did I struggle with this one in my own personal run. Going with this route, while helping Isabel and Dame Aelin, gives you the Selûnites as an ally for the final fight. This also gives Shadowheart a chance to not only reunite with her parents, but a chance to free them from their bounds. Should you choose to side with Viconia, she asks that you fully embrace Shar and let your parents go and embrace the loss that Shar provides. Sacrificing her parents guarantees her spot among the Dark Justiciars and grants the Sharan army as an ally for the final fight. Either way, once a decision is made, Shadowheart's story is complete. Sticking with the gods for a moment, should Gale remain among the living at this point, he is intrigued by the Crown of Karsus, being another object of Netherese magic. Gale sees this as an opportunity to either return this to Mystra as she requested and gain her favor once more, or throw that to the side and take the power for himself, granting him godhood. Neither option impacts the final fight of the game, as the crown sits on the Nether Brain's head. Top? Lobe? Whatever you call the top of a brain. Either way, Gale didn't even get past the introductory phase in my playthrough, as my Dark Urge pruned the weeds, cutting off his hand, ultimately killing him. Astarion is tormented with what he should or should not do throughout the entirety of the game. Once he meets the Gur outside the Hag's hut in Act 1, he is reminded of the tasks Cazador once gave him. But here in Baldur's Gate, we can meet the Gur tribe, and the hostilities end momentarily as they seek his help to undo the vile deeds he had done. They ask for Astarion's help in retrieving their children he lured to Cazador's castle, and all will be forgiven. Once you finally make it to Cazador's secret dungeon, Astarion is once again confronted by all his victims he had helped seduce and bring into his personal hell. They too beg for him to release them, having convicted them to this torture. Then, the confrontation with Cazador himself, Cazador makes it known to Astarion and the party that he needs to sacrifice his 7 spawn, as well as the rest of the souls, to ascend himself to a higher form of vampire. Here, Astarion's choice laid out once again: rescue the 1,000 souls he once damned to this ritual, or betray them all one last time and use the souls to ascend himself. Choosing to release the souls grants us the allies of the Gur, as they consider Astarion redeemed and now the hero of their people. Choosing to ascend Astarion makes us have to eradicate the Gur, granting us no allies, but gives Astarion the ability to summon werewolves, undead, shadows, and gives him a bat form in the final fight. Revenge is a dish best served cold, but Astarion is not the only one who gets their revenge. Minthara, once freed from the Elder Brain's influence, wants nothing more than to take Orin down. I can't think of any other ending for Orin, as she wants nothing to do with an alliance, But if I'm wrong, please let me know. Once Orin is no more, Minthara is vindicated, but sees there is a larger evil at play. Depending on how you play, Minthara may look to take over the brain together, or look to just end the madness and kill the brain. Karlach is also out for revenge, looking to turn Gortash's insides out for selling her to Zoriel. Beyond that, Karlach is looking for a cure to her infernal engine burning her alive. Damon is the only infernal forger along the way. Damon offers Karlach a temporary fix to this issue along the way, one in both Act 1 and 2, but seems to just give up in Baldur's Gate. I feel Karlach has the worst endings of any of the companions, as she really doesn't have a good ending. You can either allow her to fully transform into a Mind Flayer, solving the infernal engine issue, but losing herself in the process. Or you can send her back to the Hells either by herself, which she flat out refuses and is terrified of, or offer Will or your own services to join her, which she is still hesitant on. Lastly, you can just ignore it all, and after the final fight, she burns alive, leaving nothing but ash. It's super depressing, and I was hopeful when the DLC was rumored that I could return to my first playthrough and find a cure for her in the Hells, but that dream has since died. That takes us to Lae'zel's ending, which again, feels unsatisfying. There has not been a playthrough of mine yet where I really help Lae'zel with either of her goals. You can either push the Vlaakith Ascension, which is what she wants in the beginning, or you can help her free Orpheus to save her people. Neither really seem to benefit the in-the-moment situation and issues, as Vlaakith is an issue throughout the entirety of the game, and freeing Orpheus pushes the Emperor away, and oh yeah, he hates Illithids, which we all happen to be considered by Githyanki, as we are infected. It's also heavily implied that when Githyanki are ascended by Vlaakith, she really just kills them and steals their life essence to prolong her own life. It's just sad to see her go through so much trauma to only end in the same spot she did when we started, alone and excommunicated by her people. That leaves the last origin character, the Dark Urge. We mentioned it before, but you get one of two choices at the end. Embrace who you are and listen to your father's will, bringing death and destruction to the world, or you can just reject it all, your claim to Bhaal's fame, and stop this nefarious plot by taking down the Netherbrain. Both endings seem satisfying, but man, I can't tell you how good it felt to take control of the brain, my old allies, and the Mind Flayer army and lay waste to those around me. It also was wild when Dark Urge looked at his friends and told them to run while they still could, but he would hunt them down in the end. It felt kinda good playing the villain for once, especially when all the setup and plotting paid off as I became the one and only true ruler of the world. Plus, the knives bursting from everyone's chests was such an added bonus. It was so cool. Now, that covers the party members' endgames, but there are many more to discuss, so let's start with another familiar face, the Hag. The Hag disguises herself as a sea captain, with the rest of the crew being redcaps. Her main goal is to make another Hag, hence her deal with Myrina in Act 1. In order to make a new Hag, an existing Hag must consume a little girl and let her transform into a new Hag in her stomach. Once the new Hag has been brewed, the old Hag will throw up the new one and then teach her the Hag ways. In Baldur's Gate, the Hag kidnaps a child and gaslights the people into either not remembering the child or puts hexes on them to forget. It's up to the player to either slay the Hag and get her to vomit up the child, or murder the mother so that the Hag may create the new Hag. Should you kill the Hag, there really is no endgame bonus beyond items of the mom's past pirating life. But if you choose to side with the Hag, she will side with you in the final fight as an ally. Beyond either siding with Gortash and his Iron Throne prison, I briefly mentioned the Steel Foundry. Obviously, Gortash has stake in this foundry, but so does Wulbren Bongal and the other Deep Gnomes. Baldur's Gate used to be the Deep Gnomes' place of practice, being the best smiths in the area. Then, Gortash makes the Steel Foundry, enslaves the Gondians, forces them to create the Steel Wash constructs, and ostracizes the Deep Gnomes from Baldur's Gate. Should you choose to work with the shitbag Wulbren Bongal and invade the Foundry, this also loses Gortash's favor. But you go in, destroy the brains, shutting down all the constructs, and beat the Steel Watcher Titan, protecting the inner workings of the foundry. As I sided with Gortosh in this playthrough you all saw, I have played this route in the past, and it can be challenging to face these machines. Finally, Wolverine will offer his and his people's services to fight with you in the final battle if you do him one tiny last little favor. Kill all the Gondians that were forced to work for Gortosh, and their alliance is yours. Bro is not just not satisfied with domestic terrorism that's already been done, he wants you to kill the innocent people that were forced to work on these machines against their will. Wolverine Bongle sucks. Another thing we mentioned earlier was Ansir, the worm sleeping underneath Baldur's Gate. Should you go to enlist him into your services, you'll be stopped by the Emperor, saying that there is nothing to find down there and give up on the quest. However, if you do push forward, you find that there are challenges laid before you by none other than Baldurin. After completing these 4 challenges laid before you, the door is finally open to Ansir's lair, but you find nothing but a pile of bones where the worm last slumbered. However, the spirit of the worm awakens and overtakes your body to speak. It is furious that someone has returned to this place, which is where we learned that not only is the Emperor Baldurin, but he and Ansir used to travel together before Baldurin betrayed and killed Ansir. Ansir then attacks the party out of rage, and seeing this as a mercy killing, as he does not want us to end up like Baldurin. After the fight, we then pressure Baldurin for his side of the story. Baldurin then shares that yes, they were in fact companions and sailed together for a long time. However, when Baldurin was infected, Ansir wouldn't sleep, looking for a cure to the illithid impairment. Baldurin begged him to stop and to just move on, accepting what was to come. Ansir then took it upon himself to cure Baldurin the only way he could think, attacking him, looking to end his life before he could turn into a monster. Baldurin argues that he had to kill Ansir in self-defense, but as we truly only get one side of the story, and the narrator isn't always reliable, it's up to us to decide whether or not this version of events is the truth. The next mission brings another familiar face. One where if you make the right choices, unlike my stream, ends with recruiting an old ally. If you make your way to the bank in Baldur's Gate, you will find that everyone is acting a bit strange. You later discover that a group have taken the Coin Master down to the vaults. At the bottom, you find that the Coin Master has trapped the Stone Lord in a mimic, but it doesn't last long as none other than Minsk breaks out of the mimic. After breaking out, a doppelganger posing as Jaheira emerges from the inner vault stating that their job there was done as they had robbed the vault of all the gold. You then have to fight the Bhaalist assassins to escape the vaults. After this, you can find Minsk in the sewers and have a chance to convince him that the Jaheira he follows is not the real one. After the fight, you can ask Baldurin to extend his influence blocker onto Minsk as well. With that all done, you now have your ranger. Another optional quest is to break into the House of Hope, Raphael's home, and steal the hammer to release Orpheus from his chains. Again, I'm not one that really pursues the Githyanki quests, but I do like me some XP, and entering the House of Hope will cause Raphael to become aggressive to you. While inside his home, you are quickly introduced to a prisoner named Hope. Hope is imprisoned by Raphael and used against his victims, such as the hope of him assisting us by removing our tadpoles. Hope asks us to find the hammer, find where she is kept, and use the hammer to break her own chains so that she may get the house in order. She then creates the illusion that you are all servants of the house, so you may traverse the property without raising suspicions. During your exploration, you can come across Raphael's chambers, where he has a succubus or an incubus that either looks like him or a female version of himself. You can choose to sleep with it, or fight it, but there are secret things in the room that you will need to collect in order to get the hammer. You eventually make your way to where Raphael keeps his favorite things, needing to convince the keeper that you are looking to do business. Should you not get away with stealing the hammer, you must fight your way throughout the entirety of the house. With hammer in hand, you then make your way for the prison underneath the house, where you need to fight 2 specters and imps. Once you beat the enemies, you can free Hope from her imprisonment, who urges the group to run back to the portal you came through, as Raphael is sure to know what you've done by now. Upon arrival to the portal room, you are greeted by Raphael and his goons, pissed about the betrayal that has occurred. He lectures you about the whole events of the game, disappointed about how your actions brought you here. One of his minions that are there is called Yrgir, and you can convince him to join your side as he is the enemy that Raphael wants you to kill in the Sharan Temple of Act 2. The fight is one of, if not, my very favorite fight in this game. Like I said earlier, Raphael sings to you in this fight. It's challenging and one of the most unique of the endgame ones, and the allies you gain in this one are fun to use, as Hope is a cleric that is cracked at healing, though she dies pretty easily too. Should you recruit Yrgir in this fight, you can recruit him as an ally for the final fight as well. Honestly, kudos to whoever came up with this fight, and seriously, this makes me wish that a DLC for the Hells post-game was a thing, but I'm happy I got a taste for it in the base game. There are also many crimes to solve in Baldur's Gate, mainly murders. There are murders in the local church, the circus that's in town, as well as a dwarf in red running around killing people off. Which really the only endgame impact of this is our introduction to Valeria, the local detective. Otherwise, the other is to kind of just lead us to the location of where the Bhaalists are hiding and collecting the hands that will impress the Tribunal. Speaking of the Tribunal, you find another familiar face, Saravak. Once main foe, once friend, now judge of the murdered Tribunal, asks for you to prove yourself as a true servant of Bhaal. You can either present the bag of hands and describe a kill to them, or, as the Bhaalspawn, be welcomed back with open arms. They then ask you to perform a sacrifice to Bhaal, which just so happens to be Valeria. Should you save Valeria, she becomes an ally to you for the final fight. While on the subject of those asking to prove ourselves, there is also a wizard's tower at Baldur's Gate run by Lororican. Lororican wants to get his hands on the Night Song, and is willing to pay to get it. Lororican knows the origins of the Night Song, and what Dame Aelin can do for you once captured, and is seeking to do what Ketheric did, sap her immortality. You can either betray Aelin and hand her over, gaining Lororican as an ally for the final fight, or you can say hell no and kill him then and there. Additionally, if you have saved Roland's family throughout the game, you can sway him to your side and have him fight against Lororican. But if you did not gain Roland's favor, he will fight with Lororican as you betray him in his own tower. If you are successful in convincing him to fight for you, Roland takes over the tower and becomes your ally for the final fight in Lororican's place. In the bowels of Baldur Gate holds two thieving guilds that are at odds with each other. There is the Black Market Guild, who we have come across throughout the entirety of the other acts, and then there are the homegrown thieves, being simply known as the Guild. You can only side with one of them, but the one you side with will join you for the final fight. There are a few other allies that simply join you in the final fight if you have saved them throughout the game. There is Arabella, the tiefling that gets caught stealing from the druids in the grove. You need to save her from the snake, allow her to camp with you in the Shadow-Cursed Lands, and find her in the sewers of Baldur Gate, and then she will join you. The Owlbear Cub will join you if you murder its mother, save it from the goblins in their camp, invite it to your camp, and keep Daemon alive until the end so he can forge its armor. Barkus Root will replace Wolbrin Bongle as the leader of the Iron Hand clan if you do the same tasks as Wolbrin, and then convince him to take over as leader. Or you can decide to forego the Iron Hand clan and side with the Gondians. If you save the Gondians in the Foundry, speak to Zanar Tubin and he will ally with you. Bhaal will join the Dark Urge if you give in to your evil ways and kill your sister Orin. Counselor Floric will be an ally if you save her from the burning building and then save her from the Worm's Rock Fortress prison. Mole will be an ally to you if you save the refugees in Act 1 and retrieve her soul contract from the House of Hope and give it back to her. The Strange Ox will join you if you do not attack it or reveal its identity. Then, after you smuggle into Baldur's Gate, it will see you as an ally. Obviously, if you save Duke Ravengard from the Iron Throne, he will side with you in the party for the final fight. And then finally, Volo will fight with you if you save him from the Goblin Camp, and then against the mob outside the Steel Foundry. Now, there is a lot to do in Act 3, and I'm sure I've missed something along the way in this massive game. Like, not even mentioning Dribbles the Clown when talking about murders. Caught that in the post-editing here. But that covers the majority of things leading up to the final fight. So, with all of the 3 acts covered now, the last thing we need to discuss is the final battle in the upper city of Baldur's Gate. With your allies gathered, you can begin your assault on the recently freed Netherbrain. In my playthrough, as Baldurin did not extend his protection to Gortosh, Gortosh attempts to regain control of the brain and is killed very quickly. We gain control of all 3 Netherese stones and attempt to rein the brain back in, but unless you get a nat 20, this does not work against the skill check of a 99. You then have to push through the awoken army of the Absolute and climb up the brainstem, fighting mind flayers, monstrosities, cultists, and more. Eventually, after dodging shots from incoming nautiloids and still more fighting, you are able to climb up to the top of the brain and begin the final fight. The brain sends copies of your party characters, a red dragon, and brain tendrils to attack you, but you are prepared. You have your collected allies to fight back with, dispatching them to take on the enemy forces, while you and Baldurin, or your evolved party members, go to enter the Netherese brain's mind. Once inside, you can once again challenge the brain to a contest of control. After beating it down and depleting its HP, it begs for its life, offering to go under your control to end the beating. Here is now your final choice. Do you take control of the brain, the cult, and those infected, and reign over as the new ruler of the land, or do you destroy the brain, ending the threat over the people once and for all? In my evil playthroughs, y'all know what I'm picking. The world is mine to control. For the hero runs, obviously we have to end the evil that looms over the land. That's one thing I really love about this game, is there is no wrong answer. Whatever you choose to do and whatever you want to do, however you want to play, you are met with nothing but rewards for your choices. You either gain the power you fought desperately for, or you end the violence and corruption that sought to control you, your loved ones, and the world. There's one final reward for those who choose to be the enders of evil and go with a hero run. Withers, also known as Jurgle, or at least heavily implied to be, invites all the surviving party members back to the camp to celebrate their victory. You get one final chance to catch up with those you bonded with the whole time, see what the adventures they have been on, and go through the letters of other allies that were not able to be in attendance. It is such a satisfying ending, as you really feel like you are with your party, celebrating the sweet victory against a terrible foe. Withers then gives a monologue, referencing the Dead Three and telling them that nothing like this shall occur again, as he is protecting the world from them and their ambitions. It's the last peek behind the curtain and hint to who Withers truly is, as Jurgle was the god of the dead who gifted the Dead Three their godhood and powers. There's a sense of remorse inside of Withers that only makes sense if he feels a sense of responsibility for these actions. Honestly, well done with the foreshadowing, but never really truly confirming that this at all is the correct case. What a great ending to the party and game overall. Holy cow, y'all. We did it. We made it to the end. Like I've said though, I've probably missed something in this game, or just scratched the surface on others, but this was my experience with the game, with not only the playthrough that is on my channel, but the other playthroughs I have played along the way. This is a 2-year-old game now at this point, but I still play this almost on a weekly basis. This has quickly become my favorite game, and now that Larian Studios is out of the Baldur's Gate business, it's going to be very hard for the next company to follow up on this and fill their shoes. I cannot gush enough about this game. If I had a scroll of wish, I would make it so Larian Studios continued their work and gave us more Baldur's Gate with the same quality. With all this being said, it should really come to no surprise that I'm giving Baldur's Gate 3 a sickshockascore of a solid 10 out of 10, as I have no remarks that could make this game better. I remember when I first learned about this game, I was dying to play D&D, but I didn't really have anyone to play with in person. I was praying for a game to come out that would embody the nature of tabletop D&D, and this game fucking nails it. I don't foresee a day coming where I put this game down and let it escape my attention. Does the story get a little stale with multiple playthroughs? There are points. But with so many ways to play, so many characters to create, so many classes to try, and endless choices to make, no playthrough is just like another. If you haven't had the honor of picking this game up and starting your own adventure, you should drop whatever games you are currently playing and start your epic quest to save Baldur's Gate now. Thank you all for watching. I know this was a long one, but a game like Baldur's Gate 3 deserves this kind of attention. I hope you all enjoyed this breakdown, as it shows just how much this game means to me. But until next time, sickos, try to avoid any tadpoles, and grab a trustworthy party for whatever adventure you find yourselves in next. Good luck to you all, and may the dice roll in your favor.